we'll have you back with a proper fixed line. Thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate it. Well, Mark Mobius is now joining us. Needs no introduction. He's founder at Mobius Capital Partners. Mark, great to have you with us here. Thank you very much for your time. And from all of us here at CNBC-TV18, wishing you a very happy 2023. All the best of luck. In case we forget to wish you that towards the end of the interview. Mark, this year and the last 2 months actually, right? Starting the 1st of November till date, the Nifty, the Nifty index in India is absolutely flat. The Hang Seng market is up 47%, and you got markets in Europe which were big underperformers, which have come back very strongly. Is that the big theme, at least in the beginning this year? The comeback of the big underperforming parts of the global stock market, whereas the big winners perhaps stay a little subdued? What's your sense?
Well, I think the big winner, of course, is India. And the fact that India has outperformed everybody else is an indication of the incredible growth that you're witnessing in India now, which will continue in this new year. I believe that we're in a very, very sweet spot when it comes to India. A lot of things are going well for the country compared to other parts of the world. And despite the fact that you have recession fears in the US, the reality is that oil prices are coming down, and this is very good for India. And also, the Indian economy is doing very well on the back of the reforms that Mr. Modi is putting in place. So I think we're in a very, very good position in India compared to other parts of the world. Nevertheless, in any kind of problem, you're going to have winners and losers, and regardless of what market you're in. So there are going to be tremendous opportunities this year, and I'm looking forward to continuing to invest, not only in India, but in Taiwan, in Korea, and across the world.
Okay, all right. Hi, good morning, Mr. Mobius, and good to speak to you in the new year. Well, in the past, Taiwan has been your top allocation, followed by India, and then I think China. How has that changed? I think the last time you briefly mentioned that maybe you'll be skimming off some allocation to Taiwan, and maybe it goes to India. How has it changed, say, in the last few months?
That's right. We're gradually decreasing the amount in Taiwan and increasing the amount in India. But of course, these changes take time because we're not big traders. We're not in and out of the market on a daily basis. So what we do is we gradually increase positions we have and maybe add some positions in India, while in Taiwan we may subtract and reduce the amounts that we have in some of the companies in Taiwan. But these things will take time, and it's an ongoing situation. Of course, depends on the markets. If you could be reducing in one country, but if the prices are going up, it doesn't look like you're reducing, you're actually increasing.
Mark, a constant refrain or complaint from investors is that India is expensive. Does that deter you?
Well, I think what you see in the general market condition is that there are lots of fears about COVID, again, in India, coming from China. And then you have the fears of the lap over of recession from the US. But I think these are very minor problems facing India. And the real situation in India is the reform process, which is taking place.
No, got that. Mark, there have been some kind of sort of outrageous calls made by large money managers saying that this is going to be a sort of tough year. I'm saying outrageous, I should say big calls, right? Big price declines for the S&P, for the NASDAQ. The general sentiment seems to be it'll get a lot worse before it starts to turn a corner and get better. Should we continue to expect a similar kind of resilience and outperformance in India, like what we saw in 2022, if we were to see another, say, 20-25% fall in the US? Or you think it'll be different this year? Your sense?
My sense is that more money will go into India on the face of the incredible growth that the country is facing and experiencing, despite what's happening in the US. But don't forget, the US has already come down quite a lot. So you may see another, let's say, 10, 15% decline in the US, but not more than that. Then you're going to see recovery coming forward. Don't forget the markets look forward. So the markets are now not looking at 23, but 24, 25. So going forward, you're going to get a much stronger US market even in the face of a recession, because the market is looking forward. And you remember, there's still an awful lot of liquidity left in the system. Despite the fact that the Fed is trying to pull back liquidity, the reality is that there's lots of money available to consumers and investors in America.
Okay. Mark, what would you bet on in India? In 2022, the finance stocks, banks were the best performers. What's your favorite?
We are not too interested in the financial sector and the banks globally. We find that generally speaking, the banks tend to be somewhat opaque, let's put it that way. So we prefer stocks in the technologies area, like persistent systems in India, software companies. We prefer healthcare, companies like Metropolis, and we prefer companies that are doing something in the infrastructure area, particularly in India, because the infrastructure spending is increasing. So you have companies like Apollo, Tubes, and so forth. So those are the areas that we really are interested in investing. In the short term, you may see good performance in certain sectors like financial, but I think in the long term, the sectors that we've selected, we believe will do well and continue to grow.
Anything new, Mr. Mobius, that you'll have added? In these stocks you have been invested in, whether it was Persistent, APL, Apollo Tubes, Metropolis. I think you'll have had this in your portfolio. Anything fresh from the India basket that you'll have got into? Case in point, saying that you like infra companies. Have you added any of them? If you could name a couple.
We haven't added anything, but we're still exploring where we can add in India. There are a number of software companies we're looking at. We're looking at healthcare again, and also some of the more interesting specialized tech companies, companies, for example, that are doing mapping, companies that are doing consumer surveys, that sort of thing. We are still looking at, but we haven't made any decision yet.
You're a strong proponent of ESG. You brought out a book, arguing your case. And India is trying to go big on green hydrogen. We had a policy announced a couple of days back on green hydrogen. Do you play that theme, pick any stocks on the basis of that policy?
Hydrogen, of course, is big and is going to get bigger. It's something that a lot of people are looking at, and we believe that will be a big source of energy going forward. However, we're still looking at the experimental aspect. It hasn't paid off yet. And so it would be premature, I believe, to be investing in companies in that area. We have to wait to see how the technology develops. So this is something that we definitely are looking at, but I think it's too early to invest in that arena yet.
All right, that's one place which has got a fair bit of policy push, right? I mean, point taken, Mark. You mentioned Metropolis. Because you own it, and the prices come off sharply, right? From the, it's basically come off some 50% or so. The diagnostic space. I just wanted to understand what's your view first on why there's been such a steep fall, and how do you see things panning out? There's Dr. Lal, which is a competitor. There are others listed as well. Go on.
I think what's happened is that because of COVID, a lot of people thought that, these companies like Metropolis who are doing testing will do very, very well in a COVID environment. But then when the COVID is off the paper, then these companies will not do very well. So that's the reason why you've seen the decline. In other words, a lot of people said, okay, COVID testing is over, it's declined, therefore let's get out. But if you look at the earnings of these companies, you'll find that COVID testing is not a very big part of the total. So I think the market has missed that little secret. So we think that these companies will do well going forward. There'll be fluctuation, of course, in the price of the stock. But going forward, we think that earnings will continue to do well. and you're going to see a recovery in the price.
Okay, all right. Mark, what about the Indian markets? With a 3 to around a 5-year perspective, do you believe we continue to compound? That's returns of around 15%. I think we briefly touched upon that in the past as well. So do you stick to that? And also, what about portfolio construct? You have been, allocating some kind of money to gold. That's always been, the way you approach asset allocation. Your sense for 2023, given that we could have a bit of a rough ride?
Yes, well, if you consider the GDP growth, real growth of India is 7%, right? Usually you can use that as the benchmark for predicting the growth of the market, which will be double the GDP. In other words, 7 times 2, 14, 15% returns in the market is normally what you would expect. And so I would stick by that prediction. I would think that the market is going to continue to return that kind of increase. Of course, there'll be fluctuations. You're going to get ups and downs, but on the average, I think that's the kind of increase. In terms of capital allocation, we are not very interested in doing a macro allocation. In other words, we don't say, oh, we think oil is going to do well, therefore let's go into oil companies. What we do is say, okay, we like the economy. Generally speaking, certain sectors are doing well, but then we zero down on the companies. In other words, companies with a high return on capital, companies with low debt, particularly in this environment, are the companies that we want to focus on. And then we build the portfolio based on these specific parameters. Of course, the result is that you get a pretty diversified portfolio, but a portfolio that's very different from the index. And it also leads you to some of the smaller companies rather than some of the big cap companies that represent the index. So that's the approach.
Yeah, now got that, Mark. It's a pleasure. Great having you with us here on CNBC-TV18, and wish you all the best for 2023 and beyond. Thank you very much for taking out the time.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay, Mark, Mobius, bullish in India, and it's the number 2 market in his weightage in his portfolio. Perhaps soon to be number 1, as he pointed out. Well, just a few names. By the way, the market went up almost 50-60 points. It's up 30 now, so it swung. That's one. That's a nifty, 18,023. Market breadth has also come back into the positive. So 1,200 stocks are higher, 800 stocks are lower. And then look at these stocks. I mean, Paytm is up about 3.5%. It's at about 560 or so. I mentioned Bandhan earlier. But Astra Microwave, it's a small defense name, small cap name, but 7.25% higher on Astra Microwave. So that is doing very well. You got Anant Raj, which is up 3%. Mukund is up 6% now. Sobha is a new addition into the mix, 2% higher, 578. And I'm only mentioning names with volumes. Godrej Industries is up 4%, and so on and so forth in terms of stuff which is doing well. On the downside, FACT is now completely lower. It was up 3%, it's down 3%, and it's the top volume traded name, by the way. That's Fertilizer Travancore. Apollo Tires is down 1.5%. GIC RE, which kind of almost saw a re-rating, 50% re-rating very quickly, that's down about 2.6. UCO Bank is something which is down about 2%. And lots of these names, well-tracked, well-traded names, Max Healthcare, Cochin Shipyard, South Indian Bank, all in the 2% cut zone at this point in time. 35 points on the Nifty, so not running away in either direction, 18,027. We take a quick break here. Anuj Poddar, Managing Director and CEO at Bajaj Electricals, joins in for an outlook on demand and business. Later, we also analyze expectations from the IT services space. Results start next week in our special segment, Quarter Se Quarter Tak. And we'll have Apurva Prasad of HDFC Securities joining in to help us with that. Stay with us.